The fun is back, oh yes siree. It's the 2600 from Atari. It's the video system with classics galore. From Space Invaders to cars that roar. A real hip joystick controls the screen. Solaris is hot and Midnight Magic's mean. And one more thing, it's got a special low price. Under 50 bucks. 50 bucks? Now isn't that nice? The fun is back, oh yes siree. It's the 2600 from Atari.
In the late 1970s, Atari wasn't just a company. It was the video game industry. Before PlayStation, before Xbox, before Nintendo dominated living rooms. Atari turned video games from a niche experiment into a global phenomenon. But, just a few years later, the empire collapsed. Today, we're breaking down how Atari rose to the top, what went wrong, and why one of the most powerful names in gaming fell apart so spectacularly. This is the downfall of Atari. Atari was founded in 1972 by Nolan Bushnell and Ted Dabney. Bushnell wasn't trying to build a massive corporation. He just wanted to bring arcade games to the masses. Their first major success was Pong, a simple black and white tennis game. 2 pedals, 1 ball. That was basically it. But it was revolutionary. Bars, arcades, and malls couldn't get enough of it. And when Atari released home Pong consoles, they sold millions. And for Atari, this had proved 2 things. Video games weren't just a fad, and that video games were a business. In 1977, Atari launched the Atari 2600. This was a console that changed everything, because instead of just having one built-in game, it used interchangeable cartridges. That meant new games, endless replayability, and long-term profits. This meant that by the early 1980s, Atari had controlled over 70% of the US video game market. It also meant that the Atari 2600 was in millions of homes, and Atari soon became a cultural icon. At its peak, Atari was earning billions of dollars a year. However, success came with a hidden problem. In 1976, Atari was sold to Warner Communications, which changed the company forever. You see, Warner wasn't interested in innovation. They wanted fast growth, fast money, as well as constant releases. As a result, developers ended up being underpaid, overworked, and not being credited at all for their games, which led to a major turning point, as Atari's best programmers left and formed Activision, the first third-party game developer. Atari tried to stop them with lawsuits, but they lost, and suddenly anyone could make games for the Atari 2600. You see, this is where things then spiraled out of control. Atari had no strict quality control, and at the same time, retailers had demanded more games, Warner had demanded higher profits, and Atari ended up rushing everything. Thereafter, the market became flooded with broken games, lazy clones, and unfinished releases, and consumers, understandably so, soon lost trust. But Atari then made 2 decisions that would become legendary disasters. In 1982, Atari secured the rights to Pac-Man, and this should have been a guaranteed win. However, the game ended up being rushed. It didn't resemble the arcade version at all. Graphics flickered, and gameplay was poor, to say the least. Atari had produced 12 million cartridges, even though there were only 10 million consoles in existence, which doesn't exactly make much sense. Millions went unsold, and the warning signs were there, but Atari chose to ignore them. Then came E.T., or the Extraterrestrial. Atari had paid over $20 million for this license, an insane amount at the time. However, the developer was given just 5 weeks to finish the entire game. Mind you, first year programming assignments are given longer time frames than this. And the result was, well, as good as you'd expect. Confusing gameplay, bugs everywhere, and a lack of clear objectives. The game was a commercial and critical disaster. Millions of copies were returned, and unsold cartridges were reportedly buried in a landfill. A story so wild it became gaming legend, and it was later proven true. By 1983, the industry collapsed, and the reasons were, to put it simply, oversaturation of low-quality games, a loss of consumer trust, retailers were stuck with unsold inventory, and there were a lack of standards and regulation at the time. The video game had lost over 90% of its value. Atari alone had lost millions or hundreds of millions of dollars, and Warner Communications sold Atari in 1984, effectively admitting defeat. The king was dead. Atari didn't just fail because of bad games. They failed because they lacked a long-term vision, they had absolutely no respect whatsoever for the developers, and they didn't exactly have any quality standards. When their competitor, Nintendo, entered the US market with the NES, they did quite the opposite. They focused on strict licensing, quality control, limited releases, and they focused on player trust. Nintendo rebuilt the industry, while Atari never recovered. Even though Atari fell, their impact is undeniable. Atari created the modern gaming industry as we know it. They popularized home consoles, and they inspired future giants like Nintendo, Sony, and Microsoft. Without Atari, there is no gaming industry as we know it today. And their downfall wasn't inevitable, but it was rather self-inflicted.